zebra puzzles ever since doing the Einstein's riddle in the previous video. I'm just addicted. They're so fun. They're like word Sudoku. Yeah. So I'm here. I was looking at the list of puzzles, and like I said last time, the Einstein riddle is actually a medium difficulty puzzle, and I was like, I think I should really challenge myself. So I've scrolled down to the hard puzzles and found one that I thought was interesting. The Italian exhibition. I'll link it in the description below if you'd like to try it online yourself, or you can even do it with a pen and paper. So, okay, for those who are new here, a zebra puzzle is like a constraint type puzzle where the constraints are described in using words. So you'll see what I mean later on. Feel free to also watch the Einstein's one if you'd like to see a slightly simpler version of it first. So let's see the description here. 5 women are side by side talking about an Italian paintings exhibition. Each woman arrived at the exhibition at a specific time and went to see her favorite painter, find out who likes Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. Really, really cool. And maybe I'll even learn something about art and get more cultured. So I hope you enjoy the culture journey with me. And here are the descriptions. Again, if you'd like to give it a try, then here is where you should pause, because we are going to start. Without further ado, sit back, relax. 3 and 3, 2, 1. Alright, so Irene is at one of the ends. Okay, so either 1 or 5. The woman wearing the yellow shirt is somewhere between the woman who likes Raphael and the 40-year-old woman, in that order. Mrs. Hall is next to the woman that went to the exhibition to see the Botticelli paintings. Ooh, maybe I'll put up like some famous art by these people. Mrs. Bennet is somewhere to the right of the woman wearing the yellow shirt. Okay, so we know that the yellow shirt is between Raphael and 40. And she's also to the right. Teresa of this Mrs. Bennet. Teresa was the left. Teresa was the first to arrive at the exhibition. Time, I see. Teresa was the first, so she would be 2 p.m. The 40-year-old woman is left to the woman wearing the red shirt. At one of the ends, the woman that arrived at 2:30. So we know that Teresa cannot be, Teresa, okay, no, we don't know that actually. But I was just gonna say that. Okay, I guess we don't know. Irene is next to Mrs. Murphy. Okay, so we know that Mrs. Murphy is 2 or 4, depending on wherever Irene is. 31-year-old woman went to the exhibition to see the paintings from Caravaggio, but Deborah is exactly to the right of the woman who arrived at 3 p.m. The woman wearing the purple shirt is left to the woman, somewhere left to the woman that likes Da Vinci. The woman wearing the yellow shirt is somewhere between Mrs. Perez and the youngest woman, in that order. At the 3rd position is the woman that was interested in the Botticelli paintings. Okay, there's our first thread. And so, in theory, for the zebra puzzles, these rules should all be enough to solve the puzzle. So they usually start us off with something that's like direct. And I like how this website ticks it off for us when we finish a requirement. Mrs. Gonzalez is at one of the ends, so wherever Irene is, there's Mrs. Gonzalez. So that means Teresa, the other 3 are in the middle. So Teresa Irene Gonzalez, but we don't know which is which yet. The 24-year-old woman arrived. 3. Woman who likes Raphael. very challenging. Okay. Let's see. What can we do with that information? Okay, we don't even know if this is Ruth, but we know that there's an Irene. Okay, what do we do? Wow. I haven't tried this at all, so I think suddenly this feels much more murky than the Einstein's riddle, because we only have one thing that we know for sure right now, or at least I only know one thing for sure right now. So Botticelli in the middle, the youngest woman at one of the, okay, the youngest age is 20, okay. Mrs. Perez and the youngest woman in that order. So one of the ends is the 20 years woman. Okay. Okay. And the youngest one in that order, and one of the ends is the 20 years. That's the youngest woman. So the youngest woman has to be at this end. And so, the yellow shirt has to be somewhere in the middle between Mrs. Perez and the youngest woman in that order. So yellow is somewhere in the middle. Da Vinci, so purple shirt has to be, purple shirt cannot be here. This cannot be purple. It also cannot be yellow because the yellow is between, the purple is to the left. So woman 5 has to be wearing something else. The last one is actually to the right of the woman eager. Mrs. Hall is wearing the purple shirt. Okay, purple shirt. Purple shirt. Deborah is right to the woman who arrived to the exhibition. Okay, one of the ends is the woman. Okay, Mrs. Gonzalez. It's possible that Irene is Mrs. Gonzalez, but we don't know. Irene is next to Mrs. Murphy, the woman between the woman, okay, yellow shirt, the woman who likes the 40-year-old woman in that order. Okay, so we know yellow also has to not be here because there's a 40-year-old woman. There has to be a 40-year-old woman, so there's a yellow here. Okay, just to see the body. Okay, Mrs. Hall has to be either in 2 or 4. Alright, do we know anything about Mrs. Hall? 2 or 4. Ruth is somewhere between Mrs. Perez and Mrs. Hall. Okay. Actually, we do. If Mrs. Hall is in number 2, then Ruth would have to be between Mrs. Perez and Mrs. Hall, and that's not possible. So actually, Mrs. Hall has to be here. And that means that Ruth is somewhere here, and Mrs. Perez, like either 2 or 3, and Mrs. Perez is either 1 or is to the right.